Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. It's November and I know a lot of you guys are getting amped up to get out there and do some ice fishing this year. I know I am. And I wanted to start off this year on the channel with doing a little bit of a review video for you guys. Before we get started guys, please hit that subscribe button, follow along for some ice fishing adventures this year. But if you guys follow along already, you know that last year I started in doing a season-long review on some ice fishing traps. We call them traps up here in Maine, tip-ups everywhere else, whatever you want to call them. There seems to be a really big controversy on all the Facebook forums over the years. There's two big trap makers or tip-up makers in the state of Maine. You got Jack Traps and you got Heritage. It's kind of like the Chevy versus Ford debate. What's better? I figured I would make a video kind of showing you both traps and kind of showing you the different features that they have and what I personally like and dislike about both, and maybe it'll help you guys decide which one to get, because every year I always see a few posts saying I'm looking to get my first set of traps, what should I get, Heritage or Jack Traps? This is my personal opinion, and the way that I fish may not be the way that you fish, so maybe some of that will translate into what trap you might want to get, and I'll explain that. I'll try to be as unbiased as possible. If you've been following long enough, you know that I use Jack Traps. I've used Jack Traps for years. That's just what I started out using, and I've been using them for a long time. I wouldn't say that I'm loyal to Jack Traps. I still have things that I dislike about them, and we're going to go over that in this video. And we're going to talk about the Heritage traps as well. This is the type of trap that I like to fish with, by the way. It's, I guess you'd call it a H-style trap, or it's the type that just kind of flips down like this. I don't like the cross-style traps. It's got too many different nuts and bolts, and they always seem to loosen up on you and tip over. And these are just a little more compact, and I like them a lot better. I think this is kind of like the standard that a lot of people get. This is the 26-inch standard. So I bought this with the standard 3-inch reel that comes on these, and then I put my own line and stuff on it. So I bought it like this. The trap I got to compare this with was this right here from Heritage. This is the Heritage Muskie Standard, they call it. And it's the standard because when I bought it, it was unfinished like this. Here it is right here. You can see it's just unfinished oak, I believe that is. I bought it and I stained it and varnished it myself. So we'll kind of go over that in a second. And you might think, dude, it's just a trap. Who really cares? They can't be that much different. But they are, and people seem to like certain features that each one of these have. So we're going to go over that. So anyway, the 26-inch standard Jack Trap. They make a couple different sizes. They have like a 32-inch, which is what my original old set is. It's a 32-inch standard, so it's bigger with a 4-inch reel. It's really for fishing like deeper water. And that's actually closer to the size of this Heritage trap here. This is kind of their standard size. They do make a small 20-inch one, which is like a small little, like maybe like a brook trout or like a kid's set. But for all purposes, this is their kind of their standard size trap. And the same with Jack Traps here. So that's why I bought these. So this trap right here, right now I just looked these up. Jack Trap, 26-inch standard, with a 3-inch reel is $59. And you can kind of get what you want for a flag color and a stain color. If you want any of the crazy colors, it's a little bit extra. It doesn't come with line. It's just a open spool with no line on it. So $59. This one here, unfinished, the way I bought it, unfinished with no line, was $51.79. That's how much it is now. If you want to get it finished from the factory, it's $63. So it's a little bit more than getting the Jack Trap. Not much, just a couple bucks. The Jack Traps you can get with multiple size reels. You can get a 3 or a 4-inch reel. On these smaller traps like this, I usually get the 3-inch. And as far as I can tell on the Heritage, you can only get one size reel, which is like, I think it's like a 3.5-inch reel. A poly or an aluminum reel like this for the Heritage. So that's what I did. I bought these. The price difference really wasn't that much. They're about the same, to be honest with you. But the thing that I did like was you can buy the Heritage Trap unfinished and finish it yourself. Jack Traps doesn't allow for that. They have all pre-finished traps. They're all done. So if you want to save a few extra bucks and finish it yourself, you can do that. A lot of people get the Heritage Traps in the cross style, and those are actually, you can find those a lot cheaper around like at Walmart and like the big box stores. They're close to $30. I mean, that's pretty cheap for one of these, being that this one is over $50. So you can get the Jack Trap and the Heritage all spooled up, ready to go with a line and leader if you'd like. The cost for that, for the Jack Trap, is $71 with line and leader, and the cost for the Heritage Trap is $78. So the Heritage is a little bit more. So I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of like start at the top and work my way down and talk about the different features that these have and what I like and dislike about these. The Jack Traps have sort of a stainless strap, spring I guess you'd call it, for their flag. So it's just a really thin piece of metal. You bend it over and you hook it on the tripping mechanism, and when there's a fish on, it stands up like that. You know, it's just the nature of the beast. They're not all that robust. They get bent up and dinged up, and I've broken a couple over the years. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not all that nice to my equipment. I don't put them in a special sleeve or anything like that. I just throw them either in the back of my snowmobile or throw them in my bag that I carry them in, my pack basket, and that's just how they are. So you can see like this one is one of my older ones. The flag is kind of bent up a little bit. I mean, you can bend it back with a pair of pliers, but over time you can only bend these so much and then they kind of get brittle on you. So I do like that feature for storage purposes because it's nice and compact, nice and tight to the trap. So when you're stacking them all in a basket or a bag, the flag is kind of all just, they don't get all tangled up with each other. The Heritage Trap has a spring style flag, so you can see there's a spring on the end, and that's how that one works. It's on a spring, and I don't believe that this is stainless on the end. They make a little flag keeper here that works pretty well for when you're storing these. You can flip your flag down and hook it to the left side of the tripper here. It snaps in and it holds your flag just like that. So when you pack them all away, they kind of all stay like that. I'll tell you one thing I do like about the Heritage is the flag material is better. It's kind of like a vinyl material, and I like that because the Jack Traps have kind of like the OG felt everyone always used to use back in the day, and it's kind of cool to keep it original like that. But the problem with these felt ones is if you're fishing in the rain or you're fishing in the slop, which a lot of times we are, especially these past few winters, we've had so much water and slush on the ice. If you get that flag into the water, or if it's sleeting or raining out there and the water gets absorbed into that felt, when your flag goes off, there's so much weight on that flag that it'll kind of hang like this with all the weight, or it'll go up and it'll kind of lay like this because this spring isn't strong enough to hold the flag straight up. So that's one problem I don't like. I mean, I could easily change this flag. I think that's one thing that if they could make it an option, that would be a really awesome upgrade, is to have some type of vinyl flag for these. I think it would just last better, and I think it would just work better, especially in the crappy weather. These felt flags tend to get kind of tore up pretty easily, especially packing them in a snowmobile and going down in a sled or something. They get holes in them and all kinds of stuff, so they got to be replaced every now and then. And I feel like these vinyl ones are just a little bit more durable. So that's my take on that. As far as the tripper mechanism goes, when you set your trap like this, your reel will turn, and this little piece here will move and set your flag off. And the same goes for the Jack Traps. It's sort of a similar setup. They're both made to be, for the most part, windproof. The Jack Trap is a little bit more cumbersome to set. You gotta take your glove off usually because it has this split ring in here that you have to get just right on this little steel piece. So you got to get that in there just right. But once it's on there, I mean, you can get some serious winds and that's not going to go off. The Heritage, same thing. It locks right in there, so it kind of prevents wind flags, you know. I will say that I don't like the Heritage flag keeper that much because I think it's made of aluminum, and I've bent this a bunch of times already, just getting it in and out of my bag. My traps will get stuck together, and it's kind of soft metal, and I bent it a few times, so I've had to bend it, you know, out in the field, which just by hand you can kind of push on it and bend it back, which is good. But you can see it's a little bit twisted up there. The jack trap uses a stainless. It's a pretty rugged, you know, flag keeper. I don't think I've ever bent one of those before. We'll work our way down and look at the actual tripper tubes themselves, which are completely different on these traps. The Heritage has kind of the older style copper tubing with the steel rod inside. And then the jack traps has a fully stainless tube with the wire inside of that. One thing I do like about the Heritage is the gauge of wire or steel that they use for the tripper right here. It's much more robust than what the jack traps use. And I wish that would be another thing that they would upgrade on these, is the size of this wire. You can see how much smaller, that wire is on the jack trap here on the right. And I've actually bent these a bunch. You know, you're not supposed to, but when they're in the hole and they get frozen in, at the end of the day, you don't feel like chipping your hole out and you just yard that thing right out of there. You can bend that pretty dang easily. It's very easy to bend, and I've done it a bunch. So with the Heritage trap, I specifically let the thing get frozen in up on Moosehead last year, and I gave it a bunch of yanks, and it didn't bend it at all. It's actually really hard to bend because I had a couple of these when I got them that weren't working just right, and just to try to bend that piece back with pliers was quite difficult. So I like how robust that tripper is. As far as the material that the tube is made out of, this copper on here, I've heard a lot of people say that, you know, they don't like copper as much because if you get a dent in it, it could restrict the movement of, you know, the tripper inside the tube because copper is so soft. I don't know if that's true. Maybe we could test it. I have a set of really old tip-ups that were my grandfather's, and they're pretty beat up, and they have an old copper tube, and they work just fine. The jack traps stainless one, I mean, I don't think you could really dent that all that easily. It's a pretty thick tube. Maybe let's go see if we can dent this one, see if what it actually does. All right, I'm gonna try to dent this like pretty severely, so because I want to know what happens. So I'm sorry, Heritage, you're gonna hate me for this, but we're gonna do it to the jack trap too. Taking a screwdriver, and we're gonna dent it. Did that do anything? No, it still works good. Give it another whack there. Nope. Yeah, I think you would have to dent that pretty severely for that not to work. You can see I put a pretty good sized dent in that, and this tripper still moves freely. So I don't really know if that's that much of an issue, to be honest with you. A lot of people talk about it, but I just hit that pretty dang hard with a flathead screwdriver, and it's still working perfectly fine. I don't think you're gonna get hit that hard out in the field like that. And to be fair, we're gonna do it with the jack trap as well. Let's do it right here in the middle. I dented that pretty good. Try it one more time. Nothing. You know, I would say that dent is almost as significant as the one in the copper. So whether or not that stainless is that much stronger, I don't know, but it's they both still move completely free in there. So all right, so I wasn't quite sure how that was going to work out, but pretty surprised. I really I think the dents on both of these are about the same. They're not really, I thought the stainless would hold up better, but it really didn't. Honestly, it looks like the copper held up a little bit better, which is surprising. So I always kind of thought that maybe the copper would be softer, and if you dent it up a bunch, that chipper wouldn't work, but I can't really see that being that much of an issue. So one last thing about the trippers themselves. The Jack Trap has a very, very, very light trigger. I tried to figure out a way to really kind of measure this, but it really doesn't matter. I'm telling you, I fished with Jack Traps for a long time, and I fished with Heritage Traps for a while, and the Jack Traps have a much lighter tension as far as what it takes to set the flag off. Probably because this flag spring is so much lighter, there's not as much tension holding it down. It's like a snare that's going to fly up. You know, it's not under a lot of tension. So it really doesn't take much at all to set this off. And when it goes off, there's not a lot of you know, jolting or anything like that. With the Heritage Trap, I've found that it does take more tension to set this off. And when this does go off, they kind of shake around a lot too. And they'll tip over. I found that. So for brook trout fishing, I really like how light the trigger is on the Jack Trap. And that's why I fish with Jack Traps a lot. Primarily, it's just because of the trigger mechanism. For salmon and brook trout, that if they feel any tension, they're going to drop the bait. I just want the lightest thing that I can get, so that's why I kind of use those. But for like pike and lake trout and bass, that doesn't matter as much. And you know, maybe it doesn't matter at all for brook trout, but for me, I just like having that little bit softer trigger. Now let's go to the reels. This is a part that I think all of these companies could, you know, do a little bit better with. I don't think any of them are all that great, to be honest with you. The Heritage metal ones, I don't like these at all. They're not all that durable. You can see it's kind of a thinner metal. And I think Josh has one of these, and it gets bent really easily. They're much thinner than the Jack Trap. So I don't really like that. I do like to have a red handle on here that sticks out a little bit so you can reel your line up easier. The Jack Traps just have a little tiny one on this side. And actually, while we're on that, the Jack Traps and the Heritage Traps reel in opposite directions. So the Jack Traps reel backwards like this, and the Heritage Traps reel forward. I would rather reel forward, so I like the Heritage Trap for that, but really doesn't matter. But if you have a buddy that has the opposite trap of you, just remember, check which way it reels, because Josh did that to me once. Had a fish spool my line all the way to the knot, and he reeled it up for me, and because he fishes Heritage Traps, he reeled it the backwards way. All 200 feet of line reeled backwards on my trap. So next time I went to fish it, didn't work. The Jack Trap reels, I really don't like all that much, to be honest with you. They're all right when you first get them, but they do make a lot of noise. And you can hear that underwater when you get close to the traps. Not all that smooth, especially this old slopped out one that I've had for years. They make a lot of noise, so if you're fishing just under the ice, real close to the spool for brook trout or salmon, I mean, it's a thing that could spook them. I really thought I would not like the Heritage reel, the plastic reel. I just thought, why would I want a plastic reel? But I actually grew to like it quite a bit because it's quieter. Listen to that. It's much quieter than the Jack Trap reels, and I thought I would for sure break this thing because I was not easy on any of these. I threw them right in the back of my sled, in the back of my snowmobile, and it didn't break. It's actually pretty pliable, and your hand doesn't freeze to it. Ice doesn't freeze to it as bad. So I actually kind of like that. The only thing I didn't like about this reel was that it was all black, and when you're looking down through the ice, it's hard to tell if that spool is turning because the water, looking through the ice, it's black, it's dark, and you can't see that spool moving. So what I did was I taped on a piece of white electrical tape onto that little handle there. So when I look down the hole, I can see that thing spinning, because multiple times when I was lake trout fishing, I couldn't tell if the line was moving or not. You know, with the jack traps, you get the lighter colored reel, and you can see those two little things moving around there, so that's fine. But it seemed like the poly reel from the Heritage trap didn't freeze up as much on me, and when it did, it was easier to unfreeze. But like these older jack traps that I have, you got to grease them a lot. Like every year you got to pound some grease in there because they will freeze on you. If you take them in and out of the ice, you know, and set them on the ice while you're landing a fish and it's really cold out, you do that enough times or get some snow in there and they'll completely freeze up on you. It's not a sealed system, so I don't know what the answer would be to really fix that. You know, obviously a sealed reel with bearings or something like that, a waterproof reel would be awesome, but the expense on that is a lot because I actually have a couple for my jack traps that someone made for me, so I can't buy them anymore, but I do have a few sets and those things are butter smooth. The size of hardware that jack traps use on the actual shaft that goes through this spool is it's more robust than the one on the Heritage trap, and it's stainless. I don't think that this is stainless hardware. Tested it with a magnet, and the jack traps are definitely stainless. It's a thicker gauge bolt, which makes it a lot, you know, more durable, especially if you're ripping it through the ice or, you know, in and out of the pack basket. I've actually bent this shaft multiple times, just pulling it in and out of my basket, but it's easy enough to bend back by hand. For both companies, I reached out to them and asked them how much line they put on their spools. Heritage told me that when they have someone buy a trap with line on it, they put 100 yards of 36-pound you know, ice fishing Dacron. That's the waxed coated, you know, ice fishing line. But they did say you could fit more on there, up to around 200 yards. So that's quite a bit of line. Jack trap, the 3-inch reel, they said they spool it with 250 feet, which is about 83 yards. And then the 4-inch reel holds about 400 feet, which is about 130 yards. One thing I found that a lot of people do like about the Heritage trap reel is that it has the ability to add some tension to the spool. And I think that's one of the main reasons a lot of people do buy these, is because you can see this got this little star nut on here. You can kind of loosen and adjust these and add a little bit of tension to your reel. So if you're fishing big bait or live bait, you know, big shiners for pike, you can add enough tension so that bait won't trip your flag. The jack traps don't have that option. It's just a free spool, no tension adjustment, but they do sell a couple items that, they used to sell a big bait release clip. I don't know if they do anymore, or rubber band type thing where you can put on there. So they do make options for that, but the Heritage trap has it right there. So now that we kind of talked about the function of these, let's just talk about kind of the build quality, fit and finish of these, and final thoughts. Now, personally, what I've noticed is that the fit and finish seems to be better with the jack trap. I mean, if you compare everything on these traps, let's just take a look here. I mean, this is like minute details that really don't matter, but like this brace here, how it's kind of just ground off on the edge, it's not all that smooth. It's a thinner gauged aluminum, whereas the jack trap is much thicker. And it's more of a machined look to it, where this is kind of, looks like they kind of modified it as they put it on the trap maybe. I'm not sure, or they, you know, just ground the edges off to make it not so sharp. The jack traps have all stainless hardware, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that the Heritage traps have stainless hardware. The finish on the jack traps is better, in my opinion, than the Heritage traps. They do a lot of like painting, it looks like, on theirs. They'll have like blacks and pinks and oranges. And the jack traps seem to be, they're more of like a stain, a colored stain, and then it appears that they dip them in some type of really thick varnish. So like the paint doesn't really hold up as well. I've seen some pictures and seen some buddies that have the Heritage traps that get kind of beat up. So if you do get one of these and it's painted, I would recommend putting a couple coats of clear coat over it to kind of help it out. It's not going to hurt. I ordered these two traps from Heritage Trap directly, and I ordered this one directly from Jack Traps. And when I got them, they wouldn't fire. The flag wouldn't go off. I couldn't figure it out. And I did a little bit of messing with the trigger. I messed around with some stuff, and I just couldn't get it to work. I don't know why. It was right from, you know, the factory.
Why is that?
And I don't know if they got damaged in shipping or what, but both of them didn't work. After talking with Josh, who I fish with a lot, he has heritage traps, and he told me sometimes what happens is this spring gets turned, and if it's turned just the right way, it won't fire off right. So I messed with that, and I got one of them to work pretty good. The other one, I think it just got something wrong with it, but Heritage Trap was their customer service was very, very helpful. They sent 2 new traps to me immediately and fixed the problem just like that. It was no problem. I didn't know if it was maybe just my set or what, but I went to Dick's Sporting Goods and picked almost every Heritage Trap off the wall, put the flag down, spun the reel, and see if the flag went off, and they all did. So I think it was just something with the ones that I got weren't right, but like I said, they went good for it and they replaced them, no questions asked. Jack traps, I've never had a problem with them when I get them. Sometimes, you know, over time, I found that maybe this tripper will get bent down here and you'll have to bend it back and the flag won't go off, or the spring kind of gets worn out, or something gets, you know, out of whack. So you've got to kind of pay attention. Now, the customer service for jack traps, I think, is pretty good. They have a nice retail store where you can buy all kinds of stuff there. And I buy my line from them and all that stuff. I tried to order a couple of these without reels on them, and they weren't really interested in doing that. So I don't know why, but I guess I could have bought one without a reel, but it was going to be the same price as buying it with the reel, so I bought it with the reel. Obviously, personally, what I'm saying is I like the jack traps for the fishing that I do. I fish for brook trout and salmon. I do some lake trout fishing. But if I did some pike fishing, bass fishing, you know, bigger species like that where you need bigger bait or live bait, I definitely would use this. And that's actually what I used it for. I actually brought it lake trout fishing on Moosehead last year, and I caught more fish on this than my other traps. So I really liked using that. It's up to you what you want to use. They're really about the same price. Talk to your buddies what they like. Now, before we end the video, I gotta show you guys one more thing. Now, these are the 2 biggest traps made in the state of Maine. Heritage and jack traps. Everybody knows what they are. I did hear about a new type of trap that was being made a couple years ago. It's not made in Maine, but the owner designed it around fishing in Maine, and I had to buy one last year, so I did fish with that as well. Let me just show you what that is. And this is the Forest City traps. It's basically kind of a combination of both. It takes some of the issues from both of these and fixes them. I'll just show you kind of quickly what I mean. It's got as you can see, it's got a similar flag to the Heritage Trap. It's got a much more robust tripper. You know, it's not aluminum anymore, that's stainless steel. Flag holder, sorry. It's got the stainless tripper tube. It's got a thicker gauged tripper. Down here you can see it. This is a thicker gauge, similar to the gauge steel that's used on the Heritage Trap. It's got a reel more similar to a jack trap, but you know, it's different. But it has the tension screw and a spring in there like the Heritage Trap, so you can add tension to it. So it's fixed a lot of the issues, and it's got a, you can get whatever type of flag you want in there, but I got this big orange flag. The thing that I like the most about this is how sensitive this is. This trap is more sensitive than my Heritage Trap. It takes almost nothing to set this off, and I love it. The thing that happens with these traps, you can see the width difference when this one or the Heritage is set up, especially if the flag is up or the wind's blowing. Sometimes these will sit like this in the hole and they'll tip over like this in the hole. Well, because of the width on this, it has a much wider stance and it adds a lot more support. Doesn't tip over. I just want to show you guys that real quick. I really like that Bill makes these right in his house. I mean, he's not like Jack Traps or Heritage Trap. He doesn't have a big production. It's just him. So these are pretty sweet traps. If you guys want to check Forest City traps out, I'll leave them down below. As well as Heritage and Jack Traps. I'll leave those guys down below as well. So anyways, hope you guys have a good ice fishing season. I hope that kind of clears up a few things. Kind of talks about the differences between the Jack Traps and the Heritage Traps. And leave down in the comments below what you guys fish with and what your favorite trap is and why. and hopefully we'll catch you guys on the ice. So thanks for watching, guys. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and we'll catch you in the next video.